Well, it may be late spring headed towards summer, but you know what? There's a lot of football news. We'll talk about it next on Blue White Pulse. And we welcome everyone to Blue White Pulse. Steve Jones, Josh Sperber. We'll get together for the Spikes coming up shortly on June 15th. We'll talk about that later in the show. But there's plenty of news dealing with college football, Penn State football. We're going to get into it right now. Let's start with this. It may be that time of the year where the fans don't get to see the players. But you know what? The media got an opportunity, Josh, to sit down and actually talk with the freshmen, soon to be sophomores.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good experience for these incoming freshmen. They're not allowed to speak with the media during their true freshman season, and it's good for these guys to get some exposure for, you know, us media guys harassing them with all these questions. But I was able to talk to Pat Fryermuth before that after the blue-white game, and seeing Micah Parkinson's a guy who would have been at those post-game media sessions after probably every game last year had he not been a true freshman. Speak to the media, be able to get his feet wet and get comfortable in front of a camera and, providing us with the information we need to know.
That's interesting you mentioned that, because years ago, Josh, on the official television show, I'd have to go in on Sundays and do interviews. One day they brought all the freshmen down, and the only reason they did it was so they could get used to being in front of the camera. So that means part of that experience. Now let's get to the off-season. The off-season is not the off-season for the players. Jesse Luketa will tell you there's a lot of work to be done between now and the beginning of training camp.
This is, we get to work. We're here by ourselves in State College. We like to joke around and say it's a ghost town, but, the only thing we do really do aside from go to class is come to the Lash and just train. So honestly, it's like we're here together as a unit, the whole team, throughout the whole summer. We're just training, and that's all we do. So there's nothing for us if there's no distractions aside from football. So we have the opportunity to really gel together and come together and mesh and just grind. Simple as that. So you can't cheat the grind. So that's all we do.
Well, the old days, they had two-a-days in training camp, and you had two-a-days because that would get you into shape. You are now expected, Josh, to walk in first day, first snap in shape.
Well, I mean, you should. I feel like the game's become a lot more physically demanding of some of these players. You're competing with higher and higher levels of athletes across the country, across the conference, all of it. And this is the time to get ready. You don't have classes to take up some of that time. You just have a lot of different time in the off season just to stay in the weight room, focus on your technique, some of the little things that might not always be explicitly covered in practice, but are still important to the game day. And it's really paid off for a lot of these guys.
Penn State, of course, has been known forever as linebacker U. We'll see what Micah Parsons, Cam Brown, Jan Johnson can do to continue that tradition. But part of that tradition, Navarro Bowman, who was announced he's retiring, he and Sean Lee were the 1-2 punch for Penn State in the late 2000s. You look at a player like Navarro Bowman, what did you think of his career in the NFL?
I mean, he was such a great linebacker. He was a hard hitter. He was just strong, fast. He was everything that you wanted. I know I got family out in San Francisco who loved him when he played for them, and he was a fun guy to watch. But that's the game. He wasn't in the league as long as you've seen some guys in the past. A lot of guys are cutting their career shorter due to health stuff.
Brutal injury against Seattle in the NFC Championship game. I mean, that's what in the end what did him in. But see, he and Lee both knew how to play the pass.
Absolutely.
And that was a big difference. Aaron Monroe, I think he's the last one because Brandon Polk's going to go to James Madison. Monroe's going to end up at Temple. If he can keep himself healthy, he'll help them. I mean, that's the key.
Yeah, I think a big reason that he transferred from Penn State was to get some more playing time. He's staying in PA, and I think at a place like Temple, it's a good chance for him to get high in that depth chart, get some reps, and possibly make an impact for that squad, as you said.
I mean, he'll help them on special teams. There's no question about that because he helped here on special teams. Safety spot, chance of playing time, but again, he's got to keep himself on the field, which means he's got to keep himself on the practice field, and that's the key for Aaron Monroe, and he ended up transferring to Temple. All right, so Aaron Monroe, of course, played defense, but we're going to shift gears and we're going to go to offense. Sean Clifford, Will Levis, they'll compete for the quarterback job at Penn State. We'll talk about them and the offense as we continue after this. So let's get to the quarterbacks right out of the gate. Sean Clifford, who's had at least some playing time. Will Levis has not had any collegiate playing time. Both have great potential. So let's start with Sean Clifford. What do you think?
Well, Clifford, kind of the way he's been coming into this team reminds me a little bit of Trace McSorley. And I know that's a comparison that he's going to get inundated with, as Miles Sanders did with Saquon. But it's an early exit for the outgoing starting quarterback who did a lot, broke a lot of records. In Clifford's case with McSorley, broke all of the records.
Right.
And he didn't play much, but what he did, when he did play, he was pretty impressive. You know, that 95-yard touchdown pass against Penn State. He was, I think, 5 for 7 on the season. So short sample size, but that's still pretty accurate. So I like what I've seen from him so far, and I'm really interested to see a full season of Sean Clifford because I think he has the tools to be a good quarterback.
Throws a beautiful ball, no question about that, and runs better than people realize. Levis has a big arm, and I thought Levis really improved his accuracy during the course of the spring. So I know you lose out on a quarterback going someplace else, but Josh, I don't feel like they're in bad shape at that spot.
No, not at all. You know, the question is really just going to be about, can the line protect him? You know, how experienced are their supporting cast? But I think Levis I haven't seen much of, but he was the scout team MVP last year, a guy their coaches have been raving about his work ethic and potential. And, you know, does Clifford have the starting job? Yes, but I do think Levis is going to give him a real shot for it.
Veteran at tight end, Nick Bowers, 5th year. Pat Freiermuth goes into his 2nd year. He was outstanding last year. But then there's Zach Kuntz. And Zach Kuntz brings a different element to the tight end spot, and he's been working on his game.
Just stuff to work on. It's not so much like padded practices and things like that in the physicality aspect, but just training in the weight room and maximizing the time I have with that. We got a lot of free time now, like a lot less school, more time for football and things like that. So just getting out here, getting the extra work in after workouts, before workouts, catching balls on jugs, and just getting comfortable with catching the ball and everything like that.
And not only that, he's 6'7". Yeah. He can play either forward spot, as it turns out. But what does that element add in? Because he's a different body type than the other guys.
Yeah, he's 6'7", but he's only 236 pounds. That's about how much Justin Shorter weighs, I believe.
Right.
So he's like another wide receiver out there that they're going to put at the tight end spot. So I think it'll be interesting because they do have a lot of different size wide receivers. They've got Shorter, who's bigger, Dotson and KJ Hamler, who are a bit smaller. And with the tight ends, Freiermuth and Bowers are both bigger guys. So it'll be interesting to see how they shuffle them around. I really think that they can, you know, spread these guys all around the field and make it really hard for the opposing secondaries to read their schemes.
Josh, you referenced Justin Shorter during the course of that answer. He got hurt early last year, then had to work his way back from the injury and then got himself in the lineup. He's going to be a redshirt freshman this year. Can he be a complement to a KJ Hamler?
I really think he's a perfect complement to KJ Hamler. You know, they're different. The size thing that I was just talking about is a factor here because Shorter is huge. Franklin said he was a cheeseburger away from being a tight end, so he's a big guy. And KJ Hamler obviously is one of the shorter guys on the team. Speed guy. He can line up on the inside and the outside. Something I'd really like to see would have Shorter at the X and spreading the field out for KJ Hamler, putting him next to him in the slot so he can make some room in the middle of the field where Shorter's clogging up the guys on the edge.
The bottom line is you have to protect them. I mean, Pro Football Focus will tell you Michael Mennick graded out really well. Gonzalez, a 5th-year player. Will Fry's obviously back to start again, but there's 2 spots they do have to fill there.
Yeah, and I think Juice Scruggs is one of those guys who's projected to come up and fill it, but he doesn't have a lot of playing experience. I think he was hurt a little bit last year.
Well, now he's in the spot right now. He's trying to come back from the accident.
Yeah. So there's a lot of questions on that offensive line, but the three guys you mentioned, Steve, Fries, Gonzalez, and Mennett, they're really going to have to be the leaders, and they're really going to have to set the tone, not just as blockers on the field, but as leaders off the field, helping these young guys get acclimated to playing every day, because those other two spots, you're not going to have guys who's been taking everyday snaps.
A collegiate running back learned some valuable lessons along the way, that it's not just running with the football, and it's not just catching the football. Ricky Slade now knows he's going to be back there, and he's going to have to pick up the blitz.
Terrifying for me, because usually, well, for me, we're in the Big Ten, all the linebackers are way bigger than me, so, you know, it's kind of something that you just got to do, you know. I mean, I'm not ever going to back down from it. It's just something I got to work on, you know, to get better at.
Hey, that's becoming a complete back, but you know what? At his size, he actually has the leverage. I mean, he'll be underneath their pads, Josh.
Yeah.
He'll be under.
He's small, but he's stocky. He's big. He's definitely a player who has the frame to become a good blocker, running back. And he got hurt at the beginning of last year as well. That kind of slowed him down. But everything I saw from him as a running back, I liked. It's just a question of, can he adjust, and can he learn how to be a great blocker as well as a good runner?
Well, he'll learn fast, because along the way, some of the guys in practice that will be blitzing that he'll have to pick up are guys like Micah Parsons and Cam Brown. We'll talk about them on defense after this. All right, welcome back to Blue White Pulse. We've talked about the offense. Now we'll shift gears to the defense. And there are rating services, Josh, out there that talk about the speed of the Penn State defense. They're talking about this one of the top 5 speed defenses in the country. What do you see when you look at that team?
Well, to start on the speed point, we talked about Jason Owe in the last show.
Yeah.
4.3, 340 at like what, 250? I mean, this dude is an absolute freak coming off the edge, and Gross Matos is no slouch on the other side.
I haven't seen anybody move that fast since the fire alarm went off here and Stroh got outside. I mean, it was really...
Oh, he booked it to get out of the studio.
Unbelievable.
But
and screaming every man for himself.
Yes. Throwing us all to the side. But I think that's something that you'll see a lot of on the Penn State defensive line, because I think that is really where this defense gets its anchor. They're deep at that position. They have 2 strong edge rushers, is one of the best edge rushing combinations, I think, in the nation this season. I think they can be that good.
Micah Parsons started 1 game last season, yet he still led the team in tackles. It's just the beginning for him in this defense.
Just showing that Penn State's the place to be, man. We already got the fans on board. Now it's our turn, Coach Franklin and the rest of the guys on the team, to really do our job. We lost so many close games in the past couple of years, and now we're trying to finish, man. That's the thing this year. Every time we break down, we say 15 games, because we're trying to finish and go all the way this year. So I think that's the pride and goal that we're trying to accomplish this year.
Works hard, does not lack for confidence. Now, if I had his skill set, I'd be very confident too. But he doesn't lack for confidence, and I think that's one of the signatures of this defense. They don't lack for confidence.
And they shouldn't. I mean, there's a lot of talent on this defense. You know, they did lose some guys to the draft last year, but I think everything that they lost, they've got guys who can just step right in, and some of the veterans can help out as well. I mean, you know, Micah Parsons was technically not a starter last year, right. But you know, you mentioned he led the team in tackles. This team as a whole finished 4th in the FBS in sacks last year. I think they could top that.
And you want to have depth, and depth in the defensive front, especially at the tackle spot. I think they're going to be okay there when it's all said and done. Watching the spring, a guy like Antonio Shelton really came on. That helps. You know what you're going to get from Windsor. Mustipher's a great prospect. So I mean, they've got something there of a nucleus of depth.
They do, but you know, as it is in all of college football, you just don't know until August. You know, they've got a lot of young guys who have been performing well in the offseason, but will that translate to the field? The coaching staff seem to think it will. I think that they have the talent to be one of the better defenses in the country this year, but who knows? And you know, things might not always work out.
When it came to special teams last year, you saw a lot of Jesse Lucchetta. At times you saw him at linebacker. You're going to see a lot more of him at linebacker this year, and he really likes the unit he's with.
Bar's been set high from the guys I've been here before, from Jason Kabinda to the Cole Farmers to obviously Cam Brown, someone who's still in the room, but we just come ready to work and push each other. So we have high expectations for ourselves this year as a unit and as a linebacker room, so I'm excited.
Yeah, that's an area that really improved the depth on. Dixon comes in, Brandon Smith is in, Luquetta's there. I mean, they've got a group that's maybe young in some spots, but they're talented at linebacker.
And the young guys have had some experience.
Yes.
Micah Parsons was only a bench player in name last year, as we mentioned. Luquetta got a lot of good experience on special teams, and he was active. It seemed like every play I'd see him by the ball or on the ball by the time that the play was over. So I don't know if we should start talking about linebacker U coming back just yet, but I think this is a very good linebacking core that can help this team in the run in the pass game.
And a veteran in Cam Brown that really brings a lot to the table. Smart, length, understands the proper depth of a drop of a linebacker, blitz as well. And this helps the secondary out. And the secondary also has a lot of veterans in it. Taylor, Reed, Castro Fields.
Yeah, the secondary is, I think, the most intriguing battle of this offseason for Penn State, because I don't think there are too many jobs more set in stone than John Reed and Castro Fields, your two starting corners.
Yeah.
But 5 out of those 9 guys at the cornerback position for Penn State have not taken a snap. So it'll be interesting to see how they work in. We talked about Keaton Ellis has done really well, and he's been coming on strong. So who knows?
We'll wrap it up after this. Josh back with you, and as we mentioned in the open to the show, there's a lot of news going on despite the fact that this is the month of June. So let's start out with the College Football Hall of Fame nominations. And Penn State has 3 of them on there. Now, Glenn Killinger's already in the Hall of Fame as a player, but this is a nomination for him as a coach. Steve Wisniewski, it's about time the door opened to him. He was a great college player, and Blair Thomas will be the first to tell you how great he was. And Jeff Hardings, despite what Keith Conlon's going to tell you, was the anchor of that offensive line. And a 2-time All-American here. Great players on that list, and they all deserve to get in one form or another, Josh. It may not be this year, but at some point it's got to open up.
Yeah, and you mentioned with Wisniewski being on the ballot for the umpteenth time. His first 2 seasons at Penn State, All-American, All-American running back. All-American, All-American running back. That says something about the guy, and I think that, as you said, Steve, it's about time for him.
All right, so let's get to, obviously, the important dates coming up. All right, Lift for Life. This is going to be on a Friday. Friday, July 12th, is going to start at 5 o'clock at Haluba Hall, so that's different. It's always been on a Saturday. Last year they did it in late June. This time it's going to be a Friday, July 12th at 5. Big Ten Media Days in Chicago will be July 18 and 19. That's where the first, Lift for Life creates its own news in some ways. You can talk to some of the players, coaches, and some players out at Media Day. And then the first day of practice, and this is a ballpark right around August 1, August 2. It's a ballpark with the opener August 31st.
The Lift for Life is something that I'm really excited about, because I absolutely love, on any level, when you have these athletes that make such a big impact on their surrounding communities using their platform to do something good. And Lift for Life is a great organization. They've raised millions of dollars for rare diseases, and it's so good to see Penn State continuing to give back and to use their platform, their stature, to make a positive impact.
In uplifting athletes, Penn State is the #1 fundraiser in the country in uplifting athletes.
It's amazing.
#1, and not only that, #1 actually by a wide margin. That's how impressive Lift for Life has been over the years. All right, also a new bowl lineup. One thing they've done with the new commissioner of the Big Ten coming in, I think that this has all been smart the way they've done it. Kevin Warren's going to be the new commissioner. He'll start the job on September. He'll join the staff September 16th. Jim Delaney was going to retire June 30th next year. Instead, Jim Delaney will retire January 1. So Kevin will be on the job starting the 16th on the staff, then take over as the commissioner in July 1. They have the TV contract set through 2022, so you don't have to start laying the groundwork for that for another year and a half or so. Good. They also have done something with the bowls where they've got all the bowl games locked up in the Big Ten through 2025. So they're going to make sure that he has the best opportunity to have the lay of the land to succeed.
Yeah, you know, they don't want to just send him in right to the Wolves. You know, Delaney's been the Big Ten commissioner for, I mean, how many years?
Since 1989,
yeah.
30 years.
So it's, you know, that's those are hard shoes to fill.
Yeah.
And they want to make sure that the road is paved for the next commissioner.
This will be the last year the Big Ten's affiliated with the Holiday Bowl, the Gator Bowl, and the Armed Forces Bowl in Fort Worth. This will be the last year, so they'll all be on the docket this year. They'll be changed out for the Las Vegas Bowl in the new Raiders Stadium, the Cheez-It Bowl, which is played in Phoenix where the Diamondbacks play, and the Belk Bowl in Charlotte where the Panthers play. So they're trying to keep the bowl lineup fresh.
Yeah, you know, you got to mix it up a little bit. And I like the idea of the Vegas Bowl involved with the SEC and the Pac-12. And, hey, I mean, it's Vegas, baby. That's nothing. It's simple. Like,
yeah, do you have now an entire staff volunteering? I'll go.
Yeah.
Great.
I'm volunteering. I'll go. Shoot.
Okay, so it's going to be a big summer here. One thing that's changed the summers here so much is Spikes Baseball. And now this will be the 14th season of the Spikes, and this is our schedule. That is the home opener on June 15th. They'll actually open up on the 14th at Williamsport, but the home opener with an emotional night looking back at the life and the inspiration of Josiah Vieira on the 15th. July 14th, the Staten Island Yankees, your old stomping ground. July 28th, West Virginia, the Pirates affiliate, and then Batavia on August 10th, the Marlins affiliate. It's always it's a great night for us at the ballpark.
Well, I used to work in Brooklyn, and we saw a lot of Staten Island Yankees. And being from New York, it'll be cool to talk about New York for the other side this time. But I'm really excited. You know, I love working for the Spikes, and it's a great organization. I'm excited to be in the booth with you, Steve.
No, we're having a great time in the booth. What we'll do is, especially on the first game, it'll be part education because all these players, not all, there'll be some carryover. But there'll be so many new players. It'll be our job to tell you about it, and that's going to be fun because then when we get to the other games on the schedule, I think the fans will have a better feel for who they're watching.
Right.
All right. So, it's been a lot of fun with Blue White Pulse. Our next broadcast, sports-wise, will be that home opener with the Spikes at Medler Field at Lebrano Park. For Josh Sperber, I'm Steve Jones. Thanks for joining us on Blue White Pulse.